Greetings everybody, Shiv here. So as you can tell by the title and the splash and everything, we're going to talk about card draw. Now we're going to talk about the class specific card draw. This is a very interesting topic, one that has come up quite a bit throughout the history of Hearthstone. Some good, some bad. Some design decisions that a lot of people question, and some balance changes that were made. Now we're not going to cover any of the neutral options. No, there's not going to be any Gadget Sand, Acolyte of Pain, none of that, those shenanigans. So we're only going to be dealing with the class options. Now we might cover a little bit about interactions with other spells with these, but alright, that's about it. Okay, so let's get started, and we're going to start with Druid. Just go alphabetical here, makes the most sense to me. Slightly sobering up now. Okay, so you've got the Ancient Allure. Here's pretty standard minion for Druid. Now, 2 card draws is actually quite impactful. And also, so is a 5/5. Now, 5/5 stat-wise is basically, it's like 4.5 mana, to be perfectly honest with you. So now the 2 card draw, that's like 3 mana right there. So this is really like a 7.5 mana cost minion, right? But because it is a class card, and because you're getting the option of a choose, it actually ranks out to 7. So I mean, the value in this card, I mean, is extreme, but from a mana perspective, not so much. There are other cards for similar value that have way higher potential of value. So alright, so 2 card draws, pretty standard for Druid. You see it almost in every Druid deck. Alright. Nourish. Now, back during CBT, this card was used quite a bit because, oh look at that, draw 3 cards. And of course you have the choose mechanic, gain 2 mana crystals. So it's like literally 2 wild growths or I guess lay on hands without the heal. So not bad, not bad. And we used to see this a lot. Not so much now, because turn 5 is a very, very crucial turn. Alright, playing this on curve always ends badly for you. I mean, there's a lot of better plays you'd rather make on turn 5. And then playing it later, I mean, optimally, innovating this out on 3 is good, I guess, but we just don't see it enough in the meta anymore. So, yeah. Now you also notice that Druid actually has 5 different things that give them draw. Some of them, and they're all basically the same. It's chunk drawing. You get 1 here, you get 2 here, you get 3 here. Starfire, here you got damage and a draw. Okay. And it makes a lot of sense. 5 damage. Alright, so that's not uncommon. We've seen that in the game already. And then the draw actually boosts the value up some. Alright, Wrath. Again, choose 1. Deal 3 damage for 2 mana. Okay, that's pretty standard. Dark Bomb. Frostbolt. So I mean, there's definitely a reference there. But it's choose 1 or deal 1 damage and draw a card. So kind of like the Mortal Coil without the restriction. Okay, cool. We like this. That's awesome. Alright. Grove Tender. Give each player a mana crystal, or each player draws a card. This is kind of like a choose 1 version of the Cold Light Oracle, but cut in half. The given the mana crystal basically gives ramp to each player, which isn't always in a Druid's best interest. Giving card draw, also not in their best interest. So this card sees very little play outside of a very specific archetype. Now you'll notice, there are some cards that, when it comes to draw, are very specific to certain archetypes, very niche play, and there's no one that's overly universal, with the exception of the Ancient Allure. So keep that in mind when we're going through this. Alright. Next up, we get Hunter. Oh yes, this is one of my favorite ones to do. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Starving Buzzard. 3/2 for 5 mana. Okay, this is not what it started at. It was not what it started. It was a 2/2 for 2 mana that did the same thing. Now, back then, the main exploitable thing that caused it to basically become this was not an issue. Alright? But, you know, people complained and complained, and Blizzard basically started doing a review. Unfortunately, their review process takes so damn long. It's generally like 7 months. That by the time they actually got around to changing it, the meta had already negated this deck's effectiveness. So they changed the card, and, well, they ended up changing Starving Buzzard, changing Unleash the Hounds, and this led to a lot of other things, mostly the rise of something even more disgusting that made Starving Buzzard a burst draw mechanic. Now, this wasn't the first time we had seen this. In the OTK deck, yeah, it was burst on 1 turn, because you actually had to play out of your hand all these beasts. Now, beasts inherently are weaker than any other minion in the game. I'm not even kidding. Their stats are horrible, their effects are generally horrible, their synergies are few and far between because they don't last on the board. You play a Timberwolf turn 1? No. Alright? You get very little value out. There are very few that you can play on curve without some assistance of other things that are even viable. Haunted Creeper and, like, I guess you could say the Web Spinner are like some exclusions on this, as is the High Main. These are like some of the decent ones, but for the most part, the rest of the beasts are pretty shitty. And if you're gonna try to argue Mukla with me, yeah, because they can't just, you know, deal with Mukla easily. It's actually not hard to deal with Mukla. It's so not hard to deal with Mukla. But again, beasts are a horrible thing. So, because they changed Unleash the Hounds and it allowed for burst draw mechanic, this allowed hunters to fish for an answer. Well, apparently, the Blizzard design team said, oh, this leads to anti-fun, and again, a lot of people complained. So they changed it to 3/2, and now you can only do that same combo at turn 8, and by then, you know, why bother? You can play Face Hunter. So, a lot of mid-range potential slid downhill. So yeah, moving on. Tracking. Okay, so here's a concept. You get to dig 3 deep, but you only get to keep 1. Now, this may sound like a cool idea until you draw a win con condition, which, if you're looking for, say, a silence or, oh, I don't know, anything else, and you get a win con, or you get a kill command, which in its own right is a win con depending on deck archetype, you actually have to take it. So this is more punishing to you than you could ever imagine. But in certain circumstance, an emergency, in a pinch, this kind of helps out a lot. Alright. Flare. This used to be 1 mana, and it was damn near like in every hunter deck. Why? Well, because mages were still fucking around with Ice Block and a few other secrets. So 1 mana flare was good for negating this. It allowed them to go, oh, so I've done all this damage, I got you down to 1, I know that's Ice Block, so I'm going to get rid of that and just hero power and win. That's how Hunter worked. In all honesty, Hunter was one of the main reasons that was keeping Control Mage in check. But because of that, they made changes. Mind you, we also got Kazan Mystic at the same time that this came out, and a minion that takes a secret and gives you a body on the board has a greater impact than, well, just something that removes secrets and gives you a card draw. Also, let's not forget it undid stealth, which was kind of a nifty thing, especially after Naxxramas. So yeah, they changed that, and now you generally just don't see this much at all. If you're gonna pay 2 mana just for the card draw, wouldn't you just rather play a loot order? At least then you can get damage with it or trade with it or something. So, I don't know. Alright, call pet. Here... Alright, I understand the whole principle of why this card is good. Draw a card. If it's a beast, it costs 4 less. The problem, yet again, is beasts suck ass. The only way that this card is good is in a beast synergy deck. The problem is beasts are horrible synergy, so the value of this card is beyond subpar. Like, that crystal shouldn't be blue, it should be shit brown. That's how garbage this is. So it's a very situational for deck design. And again, you know, there's going to be bad cards in a meta. There's going to be cards that make you think, hey, you know what, I'm going to try to make something and make this work and see what happens. And then when you come to the realization, wow, that's just a fucking hell no. You know, it's a painful realization that not everything is viable in this game. And Call Pet, even with the reduction, it's bad. It really is bad. This basically means I have to run, you know, 30 value beast. Unfortunately, there's just not that. I mean, yeah, I'm going to put Makesna in there. I'm going to put the Beast in there. King Crush is going in there. You know, the 2 high mains, sure, why not? But what else am I going to fill the rest of the deck with? You know, I mean, if I get a secret, it kind of negates the value of this. And again, it's 2 for a draw, but you're getting a reduction, but only if it's a beast. This I kind of have a problem with. But it is drawing from your deck and giving you a reduction. This is like the Farsight for hunters, alright? And we all know how much Farsight's used. Alright. Quick shot. Okay, so let's review. They took away your consistent draw engine. They nerfed your very viable secret removal option that you could use against other non-secret classes to reveal stealth and to get card draw. They nerfed that. They gave you the whole Call Pet mechanic, but you know, those are all very gimmick. There's nothing that's actually viable. So here comes Quick Shot, because what they ended up discovering is, because when you take away draw options for a hunter, they're having to play pretty much a lot of top deck mechanic. And just to ensure that players are going to exist in a top deck mechanic, they gave you a draw option that required you to be in a top deck sort of environment. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like having to rely on top deck. And you'll see this a lot in the tournament when casters like, oh, you know what? He's in top deck. What he needs now is a quick shot to a kill command. The fact that that is actually something that has been said at least 6 times in previous tournaments since this card has come out is kind of disturbing. Alright? But, so let's take a look. The damage here, pretty cool. I like it. But that card draw mechanic, it pretty much says you're going to play an aggressive mid-range deck or an aggressive face deck. Yeah. Now the problem is Hunter has actually 5 draw options, but they're all beyond situational. One is just completely almost non-usable. This is what happens when everybody complains about something rather than trying to figure out how to counter it. Alright? Everybody complained about OTK. Then eventually the meta countered it. But then it was too late. Change had to be made. Then everybody was going, oh my god, this mid-range hunter is just too powerful. So rather than fixing one of the more annoyingly stupid cards that they ever made, which I'll say is the second version of Unleash the Hounds, not the original version or any of the mana, yeah, the original version, and then they made like different mana variants of another version, which is damn near a complete different card on its own. Alright, that complete different card never should have been made. Period, point blank. Alright? But this is what happens when, you know, you don't really understand how balancing in a CCG works, or TCG. And when you actually are taking complaints from your consumer base without fully testing it out, without fully seeing where things are going to go, you shouldn't actually be forced to make these changes right away. Instead, what you do is you create new content to counteract that, and then you slightly change them so they're less impactful. That way people have other options of dealing with it. That's kind of how you should be doing this. But no. No. Alright, moving on. So, Mage! Alright, so, Mage, you've got Arcane Intellect. This has been a staple since, God, Alpha. Alright, makes a lot of sense. 2 card draws for 3. You can get reductions with this with Sorcerer's Apprentice. A lot of people love that. So at that point, you are actually getting 1 for 1. Not bad. But here's another thing how you look at this. You're spending 1 card into your hand to draw 2. Right? It's not horribly bad. It does accelerate your deck. It does lessen the amount of RNG in the what's going to draw next. So that's always a good thing. Alright. Unstable Portal. Now, I know what you're going to say. Shiv, that's not card draw. Yes, it is. Alright? It is outside deck design card draw. It is still a draw. This is basically the best version of Farsight you'll ever see. Alright? Farsight comes from the deck. Alright? Which you get a low drop minion. Fail. You look at Call Pet. You don't get a beast. Fail. This you always get a reduction on. Thus the value of this card way better than either of the other 2 iterations that are similar to it. So yeah, it's card draw. It's just not card draw from your deck. Now you'll notice they don't have any other card draw. There's a very specific reason for this. Mages already have the potential of burning the shit out of you. Okay? Between Ice Lances, Frostbolts, Fireballs, Arcane Missiles, Charge Minions, throw in some Spell Power, they can just Shrek the shit out of you. Alright? They are almost completely reliant on from neutral card draw options or having to play at a slower tempo, which we like. Boy, do we like this. Alright. Paladin. Now, Paladin is a very, very unique specimen when it comes to card draw. They get 6 of them. One of which, and they have small chunk, reusable, huge ass burst, every possible aspect of card draw Paladin has available to them. But there's kind of a weird issue with that. Some of them are very situational, some of them are very, very bad, and some of them are just broken beyond belief, but they only work in very, 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 one small deck design. Alright, so let's get through this. Oh, look, Ben's back. Great. Alright, Blessing of Wisdom. Now, this seems like meh card, but it actually serves like a dual purpose. You can put it on your opponent's stuff and basically lock them down from ever attacking with certain minions. It's actually quite fun. But this can backfire on you very easily. But this is a reusable mechanic. There are also now several minions that when you play a spell onto them, they get a bonus. Or if you play a 1-mana spell, you can summon something else. You know, Mr. Gazlowe, hello. So, kind of cool. Alright, Hammer of Wrath. Damage plus card draw. Not the first time we've seen this. 4 mana is a very interesting spot because, you know, Paladins, almost everything is fucking 4 mana. So, this is actually pretty standard and kind of what you should have, when you think about damage to card draw. The only way you can make this cheaper is really removing down that amount of damage. Like doing 2 and drawing a card, even at 3, that feels a little too much value. Alright, Holy Wrath. Again, damage plus card draw, but this one is different. This one, your damage is completely dependent on what you draw. We saw Kripparrian make some really fun decks using Giants and this card. Yeah, because, you know, Molten Giant's 20 damage hit. Could you imagine if you got that Super Molten Giant that's in, or, yeah, it's still in the Brawl right now? Shrekage. Shrekage. That'd be awesome right there. Somebody's going to figure a way of doing this, by the way. Somebody is definitely going to figure a way of pulling this off if they get the chance. I doubt we'll ever see it in the Brawl, though. But if they reuse any of those cards, never know. But yeah, Holy Wrath, it's kind of a cool concept. I played around with different variants of this myself. But at 5 mana, it's very punishing. So it almost sees, like, actually, it sees virtually no play now. So, alright, Lay on Hands. This is your most common draw for Paladins. It's burst, it comes with a heal, which is really good, considering that Paladins run a very slow deck, traditionally. So this opens up a lot of potential for them. Alright, this is what I refer to as chunk draw. You get a chunk of cards. Alright, Divine Favor. This is another chunk, but this is a huge chunk, but with a variance. Alright, I'm going to talk about this now. So, as you read the card, whatever your opponents have in your hand will determine, whatever your opponents have in your hand and how many you have in your hand will determine how many cards you get. Whatever that difference is, you will get. You can easily play around this. If you're playing a very hyper aggressive, like low drop 1/2 deck with maybe like occasional big drop on the back end, i.e. Leroy, you'll almost always get value out of this. Matter of fact, there was a time when the quote-unquote Shaman deck was destroying Handlock because turn 4 they were getting 9 card draw. It was so hilarious. This is one of the few cards that has the potential of doing that, and yet having that large of a burst card draw is a bad thing, apparently, right, Ben? I mean, that's why you kind of fucked with Starving Buzzard and didn't fucking do it right. But hey, you can't always homogenize things equally across different classes. This is something I've had to come to realize. If you make every design decision to be universal across multiples, it just does not work. And the reason why it does not work is because then you basically make every single hero interchangeable. Nobody wants to see fucking Zoo being applied to Hunter. Nobody wants to see certain aspects of like Druid applied to every class. I mean, nobody wants that. So you have to give a little bit of variance to different classes, alright? Some of them are going to get a little bonus here. Others are going to get shafted there. But it's really up to the deck designers to really figure out how to work past those shortcomings in the design and make better, more efficient decks. It also will rely heavily on the player to make the right choices in what to play, when to play it, and not overextend their hand. So, as much as I'd love to basically call Ben Brode out on his design decisions when it comes to this card, there's actually a balance point for this, and I can't really fault him on it. I really can't. Solemn Vigil. This one, however, I can. Okay. So, Solemn Vigil. Oh, God. So, draw 2 cards. This costs less for each minion that died this turn. So, this is basically saying, hi, fuck your consecrations. Don't use those anymore with equality. No, sir. You want to use the Wild Pyromancer equality. Sure, it wipes your own board, but guess what? You're getting 2 free card draws. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to reduce your their entire board, which, thanks to things like Implosion, Unleash the Hound, even Muster for Battle, you could get some huge value out of. In the Pally v Pally matchup, if you can actually get away with a Consecration against just a Mustard that turn, plus if you had anything else on there that would die from that, you know, you could easily get this out for free. I've seen it done. So this isn't horribly bad, but it's very situational. Very, very situational. But it plays into one of like the core strengths of Paladins, which is, hi, we could just wipe your board. Unfortunately, for some odd reason, Paladins have been lessening up the amount of equalities they take. Huh. I guess that's why we don't see the popularity of this card. I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Alright. So, let's move on to the next class. Oh, yes, Priest. Yes, Priest. And look at that. Ben went away for some odd reason. And, you know, this is where I would expect Ben to pop up and start laughing at us, considering how Priest works. But, you know, hey, he shows up when he wants to show up. Alright, so Thought Steal. This is actually card draw. It's just not from your deck. And it's not really taking away from your opponent either. It's copying it. So, outside design draw. Okay. Cool. So, copy 2 cards from your opponent's deck. This actually can lead to some hilarity moments, or it can lead to some fail moments. Ask any priest who's ever versed a rogue why they don't ever use Thought Steal until after they've seen a few things being played. They'll tell you why. Alright. Alright, moving on. Power Word Shield. Hey, look at that. It's a enhancement or a buff to a minion, and you get a card draw. This actually is something I like a lot. Alright. It interacts with the board, and it replaces itself by doing that. You know, any other time, you never want to do something like that. Alright. Mind Vision. Again, well, if it's good from the deck, must be good from the fucking hand, too. But you generally don't see this. Even though it's 1 mana, it's easy to fit in the curve, but it's a deck slot. And sometimes you really don't want to fuck around too much with your opponent's cards. Northshire Cleric. Alright, soapbox time. Now, Northshire Cleric is probably one of the more consistent card drawing engines out there. Now, it's also easy to kill with certain classes. Most notably Mage, Rogue, Warrior, Shaman technically. I mean, it's really easy to counter. But if you don't have the answer for it, this guy could really Shrek you, alright? He forces some really off-play design options and certain design concepts when trying to counter Priest. Mind you, Priest is one of the weakest classes to begin with, so whatever. What's kind of troubling about this is here you got a draw engine that can literally draw several times in a turn. Not only that, but draw on your opponent's turn too. Oh my god, the whole Priest versus Shaman thing is hilarious to watch when this guy's in play. It's hilarious to watch. Alright, there's no other thing out there that I can really think of that does that. Short of Death Rattle minions. Alright, so that's a little meh. Plus you get 2 of these out there, you can get some tremendous draw. I mean, circle plays, holy shit. You know, but again, it's priests who are in like the weakest spot ever. If you were to give this to like certain other classes, like if fucking Shaman had Northshire Cleric, broken. But because it's a priest, it's not as broken, in theory. Alright, moving on. Oh god, Ben's back. Alright, Sprint. 7 mana! Yeah, 7 mana. Now, I'm bringing this up because going back to the Hunter paradigm, when Starving Buzzwords 2 and Unleash the Hounds became 2, at turn 4, Hunter's got a burst draw. Right? 2-card combo burst draw. Depending on what the board state was. But, again, depending on what the board state was. Oh, look at that. Rogues have been able to do this since day 1. Nobody had a problem with it then. Why is there a problem now? Oh, because this is a board state. Yes, because you'll have a much more strong board state. And because Hunter's Mark is 0. Which meant Hunters always had a way of dealing with whatever you put out. Though with Sludge Belcher now, I really think that kind of changes a lot. But hey, you know, whatever. So, yeah. But hey, Sprint has been around for a bit. Alright. Shiv! No, not me. The other one. Alright, so deal 1 damage, draw 1 card. Now remember what I was talking about with Paladins, you know, anything like 2, you'd have to kind of go for 3, and that feels like a little too much value. Shiv is the reason why I say that. This is actually pretty bland if you think about it. It's basically Novice Engineer the spell. Alright, Fan of Knives, because, well, AoE plus card draw. That makes a lot of sense. But, eh. Alright, what else? Wait, what do you mean there's nothing else for Rogue? How do you make a class that requires combo to get a lot of synergies and not give them anything else for draw? Oh wait, you nerfed the engines they were using. Oh, okay. Alright, yeah. Actually, when you really think about it, they actually had to. Rogue was one of the most powerful classes in alpha testing. Adrenaline Rush alone was broken. So, yeah. Allowing Rogue to have too much card draw pretty much signs your own death warrant. So there is a reason why they do that. So all the people who complain about Rogue not having enough card draw, you're really not looking hard enough. Alright, let's move on. Okay, so Shaman, Farsight, which is pretty much, you know, the grandfather of Call Pet and Unstable Portal. It's garbage shit design. Nobody uses this outside of fucking batshit crazy people like Noxious and myself and a few others. Has no competitive value. Alright, Manitai Totem, the one and only draw engine for Shaman. Now, it used to be Shaman would run these plus Nat Pagel. But no, Nat Pagel got too much value. Get it out of here. It actually did. It had way too much value. Lo and behold, nobody wanted to run Crazed Alchemist to easily counter it. Nope, they just complained as per usual. Rather than trying anything new, maybe teching in something. People are lazy. It's easier to bitch on a forum than it is to actually be inventive. So yes, Manitai Totem. Playing this on curves sometimes is really dangerous unless you have coin. Alright? And again, not good. Actually, no, even with coin, you really can't get it out. You have to like lay out taunt walls. You got to protect this guy. Alright? Because the moment he comes down, they're going to take it out. Because the one thing you don't want is Shaman getting more card draw. Okay? Shaman have the potential of really laying out a lot of great synergy, a lot of great control, and you don't want them to do that. You don't want them getting more chances at getting a lightning storm. You don't want them pulling the fire elemental. You don't want these things. Alright? So yeah, this guy pretty much insta-kill on sight. Mages, they don't even hesitate. Frostbolt done. Alright, now what is the rest of my play? Okay? They do not hesitate. So inherently, that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing either, but the fact that this is really the only drawing mechanics for Shaman is a little depressing. Alright. Oh god, Ben. Really? For Warlock? Really, sir? Alright. This is what I get for taunting him on Twitter. Alright. Mortal Coil! 1 damage, and if it kills something, draw a card. This really incentivizes, you know, either anti-aggro or trade value. You know, oh, you got a 3/3. Well, I'm going to trade this Harvest Golem in and hit it with a Mortal Coil. Sure. And in certain circumstances, you could use this on your own minion to get out, say, a Doom Guard if you're using it on an injured Walker, or yeah. Doomcaller, yeah, whatever. On that 3/4 piece of shit. And, yeah, get a card draw, and you get the 5/7 onto the board. Value. So, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Alright, let's see what else we got. Hero power. That's right, because fucking Warlock does not need any more draw ability. They've literally got something that deals 2 damage to them every time they tap. I have seen nothing but complaints about this left and right. Oh, Zoo's broken because of their hero power. No, it's not. Seriously, Zoo would not exist without that hero power. If you've ever think that Zoo is a viable deck outside of Warlock, try it, okay? Try it in Priest, doesn't work. Try it in Hunter, does not work. Try it in Rogue, does not work. Alright? Doesn't work. Mage, even worse. So it is kind of a sad thing, and people bitch about this. They're like, oh, this should go up to 3. No. Alright? Mage uses its life as a resource, much like in World of Warcraft. So it only made sense that this is how that worked. But everybody keeps bitching, and this is like the one thing like the dev team have actually said, no, we're not. No. Alright? They literally just don't look at this one, and I'm so glad they don't. If they actually changed this would be so disgusting. And for once, Ben Bro's not actually laughing at me. Oh wait, no, he never was laughing at me. He was laughing at the community. But yeah, I will say that their hero power is very punishing to pretty much every other class. I mean, you look at Zoo, heavily dependent on life tap. You look at Handlock, heavily dependent on life tap. Midlock, heavily dependent on life tap. Demon Lock, heavily dependent on life tap. Murloc Lock, heavily dependent on life tap. Yeah, Ben, I'm sorry. No matter how much you want to try to convince us that Murlocs belong with Shaman, no sir. They will always be a Warlock deck. Alright. So here we are with Warrior. Slam! 2 damage to a minion. If it survives, draw a card. That's weird, kind of like the inverse of a Mortal Coil. And it does more damage, it costs more. Alright, cool. This I actually like. It incentivizes kind of like the whole trade-up value you normally get with Abusive Sergeant, but instead of having Abusive Sergeant, you're using a spell, and you get a card draw off of it. It's like a win-win either way. But you generally don't see that kind of playstyle from Warrior all too much. No, all too much. Alright. Shield Lock, because armor is the most important resource for a warrior, whether it be control or patron. Yeah, I only listed those two. I'm not even going to count the aggro face rush warriors that pop up here and there. And obviously combination warriors are pretty much, I fall under the same category as patrons, so they're almost identical in many similar ways. One uses like exploiting board state mechanics, the other uses raging organs and combo synergy to exploit mechanic. So yeah, they fall in the same thing as combo gimmick, but they're both very effective when played correctly. But Shield Lock delays death, and you get a card draw out of it. That's huge value. I mean, 5 armor on its own is pretty important. Now you throw a draw card on that, that's some value. And then there's this motherfucking piece of shit. This card has me more pissed off than anything else. Much in the same way that Divine Favor really was a kind of a problem card, you know, because it allowed you to get a possible 9 cards in certain circumstances. So does this one. Yeah. And actually, this one max of 8. Because if you've taken any damage to yourself and you have a full board, that's 8 guys, as long as they've been damaged. That kind of bursting like that in card draw is inherently very anti-fun, but it leads to so much shit, basically locking you down. Alright? In general, in card playing, when a person extends out their hand, they've overextended, which means if you can deal anything to their board within a turn or two, you might actually recover from this. But because Battle Rage exists, alright, so they overextend, and the last card they play is Battle Rage, guess what? They didn't really overextend. But this does require your board to be injured. Alright, so that's something you have to consider until you look at Deathspite and Whirlwind, and you're going to get what I'm saying here. So it's not unreasonable to think that you can get this. done. Alright, really it's not. And the way a lot of these deck designs work, you actually want to injure your minions so you get more armor, so you get more card draw, so you get more drunken ass dwarfs basically saying the same thing over and over that you end up having nightmares about. So, Battle Rage, too much value. Too much value in this card. This card needs to be changed. This card needs a drawback mechanic to it. Alright? Changing the mana cost is not going to fix this. So don't take the easy way out on this. I've thought about this, and you can't really change it too much, but I have an idea. Alright. So, we see a lot of times in the Patron decks that warriors will use this to refill up their hand, and they'll get like 4 to 6 card draws, which basically gives them the answers they need. Alright, well, how about this? For every card you draw, you take 1 damage. Initially I thought 2, and then I realized, yeah, that would be way too punishing. Alright? But you should take at least 1 draw from that. You should take 1 damage per draw. Now, some people might go, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not fair. It's like, oh, hold up now. You have a mechanic that allows you to basically have life above your core set. So you have ways of mitigating the hell out of this. So it's not really unfair. Only thing that this will do is basically force you to really think about when you want to do this. It also maybe change a little bit of your core designs and wait for good value in some of your combo synergies. That's it. That wouldn't break you. But what this would do, right, would weaken you enough to where your opponent might be able to lay out a combo to win. As it stands right now, Patron is a very difficult deck for a lot of different classes to deal with. Mage, ironically enough, because of Patron, has started running Flame Strike, which is brilliant against it. Shaman's okay with it because most of their totems don't have any attack. And, oh, look at that, Lightning Storm exists. Warlocks don't really give 2 shits because, hey, they have Hellfire. So, yeah. But anything else is very punishing. Which, hey, look, it punishes the hell out of Hunter. So I'm kind of okay with it, but I do feel the value of Battle Rage in comparison to a lot of the other draw engines out there is a little skew. I mean, mana-wise, this is so much value. So much value. At least with Divine Favor, it depended on what your opponents had in their hand. Alright, so in certain matchups, you wouldn't get the huge draw. Here, because of the way your deck is designed, you're almost always going to get value out of this card. Playing it on an empty board, as long as you take a damage, is still 2-1. Alright, so any injured minion you have on there already exceeds the 2-1 value. You're literally talking about getting some seriously sickening value out of this card. Seriously sickening. Alright, so you'll notice, again, we didn't cover neutrals, because there are a lot of neutral options out there when it comes to card draw. Gadget's and Auctioneer, Acolyte of Pain, Cold Light Oracle, Novice Engineer, and so on and so on, Loot Hoarder, there's a bunch of them, alright? Or Gnomish Engineer too, always forget about that one. Azure Drake. Each of these have their own unique place, with the exception of Novice Engineer. Alright? They have their own unique place in the meta, and they work very well with other decks. Case example, Azure Drake works universally well across many decks, because it's not just card draw, it's also spell power. That's really universal. Same could be said about Blood Mage Thalnos. So, in short, when you're trying to really look at card draw, don't try to basically take the same approach per every class, the same approach on neutrals. You're not going to get the same values. Certain classes synergize in certain playstyles very well. Trying to argue that they should have something similar to this, never really good. Having something similar to this, never really good. So making those arguments and statements is generally a bad thing. This is something I have had to come to learn myself in doing any kind of card design. Alright? I look at balance approaches. I look at how cards interact. I look at the long-term effects. I actually play out these sort of things not only in my head, but also on paper. Also in the Cockatrice emulator. You really have to look at how everything works together. A card game in many ways is kind of like a clock, alright? Changing the timing of one gear here will affect all the other gears, sprockets, springs, coils, elsewhere in the mechanism. Even though they might operate a totally different part of the watch. So, I know I've been very critical of Ben, and I may have made a few little funnies here having him laugh. And the Team 5 devs. Alright? But the reality is, balance is one of the hardest things you could do in any game. Finding that sweet spot to where everything is kind of unequal. And no matter how much you try to have that balance, people are still not going to be happy. And you'll never have a complete total equality across every single class. Because there's going to be different deck designs. There's going to be different ways of playing. Different philosophies. Different skill levels. So some players might do really good with less. Others will do really, really good with more. It all depends on a lot of factors. RNG being like the number one. So please chill out with all the hate on the forums about the card draw issue, guys. In all honesty, I really don't want to see too much more card draw. I do think they need to fix a couple card draw things, most notably Starving Buzzard. And they also need to fix, I almost want to say Shaman because I really feel they need at least one more draw. Alright, that's just too punishing. But, again, have to look at the long-term effects. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this super long educational video. If you like these videos, please like, subscribe, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think about draw options. What would you like to see? Please try to keep it civil this time. Alright, I'm already getting people sending me like really nasty emails because of my commentary about hunters. And to that guy who decided to show his ass, I'm already in the process of working on redesigning the entire Hunter set based on a balanced approach to where aggro face Hunter is not the only option. So, till next time, which might be a bit because I got the whole surgery thing coming up soon, stay safe, have fun, and may RNGesus bless you. And be nice to Ben Road, please. Peace.